The scanning arrays had been screaming warnings for 3 minutes before anyone believed what they were seeing. Chief Operator Rilth watched his screens with all four eyes wide, mandibles clicking in distress as numbers scrolled past that shouldn't exist. The object approaching Council space measured 47 kilometers from bow to stern, massing more than the entire defense fleet combined. "Impossible," muttered the military advisor, her tentacles coiling tight against her body. "Nothing that large can move that fast." But the readings didn't lie. Whatever approached them had crossed 2 sectors in the time it should have taken to traverse one, moving at velocities that would tear apart any known vessel. Rilth's talons danced across his console, activating every emergency protocol in the book and several that weren't. The council chamber erupted into chaos. 47 species all shouting at once created a wall of sound that made translation software give up entirely. High Chancellor Vorn raised his primary manipulators for silence, the gesture ancient and commanding enough that even the youngest races obeyed. "Report," he buzzed, compound eyes reflecting the emergency lighting that bathed everything in amber. Rilth swallowed hard. "Unknown vessel, designation pending, mass equivalent to a small moon, power output exceeds our combined fleet by factor of 12. No response to hailing on any frequency." He paused, checking his readings again. "Chancellor, it's slowing down." Every species had their own way of expressing dread. Some went pale, others darkened. A few released pheromones that made the air filtration systems work overtime. They all understood what it meant when something that powerful decided to stop right at their doorstep. The military advisor pushed forward. "I recommend immediate defensive formation, activate all orbital platforms, evacuate the civilian sectors." "Wait," the voice came from the back, young and uncertain. Junior Analyst Fenn stepped forward, fur bristling nervously. "The object isn't charging weapons, see here." She projected her findings into the central display. "No targeting locks, no energy spikes consistent with weapon preparation, it's just coasting." "Maybe it doesn't need to prepare," someone muttered. Chancellor Vorn studied the data with the careful attention that had kept him alive through 3,000 cycles of politics. "Continue hailing, all. Frequencies, ancient languages, mathematical sequences, everything." He turned to the military advisor. "Defensive positions, but do not, I repeat, do not power weapons. If this is first contact, I won't start a war through fear." The next 17 minutes felt like 17 years. The object continued its approach, silent and massive. Visual feeds finally resolved it into something recognizable as a ship, though unlike anything in Council databases. Where their vessels favored elegant curves and artistic flourishes, this thing was brutal efficiency incarnated in metal. Scarred armor plating suggested it had seen combat, survived combat, and come back for more. "It's dropping out of faster than light," Rilth announced. "Estimate visual range in 30 seconds. The chamber fell silent. Every species present had different eyes, different ways of seeing, but they all watched their displays with the same held breath. When the vessel materialized in normal space, several representatives made sounds their translators couldn't process. It looked like someone had taken a mountain range and taught it to fly. Massive gun emplacements dotted the hull, each one larger than Council frigates. Armor thick enough to shrug off anything they could throw at it. Engines that burned with contained fury. This wasn't a ship built for exploration or trade. This was a warship, pure and simple, designed by minds that understood violence on a fundamental level. "Size confirmed," Rilth whispered. 47.3 kilometers, mass. I can't even calculate it properly. The gravitational distortion alone is affecting our station orbit." Then it spoke. A single word, transmitted on the oldest frequency in galactic common, pronunciation ancient and careful. "Parley." The chamber exploded into debate. Some wanted to flee, others demanded they open fire while they still could. The more cautious urged patience. Chancellor Vorn listened to them all, his long life having taught him that fear made poor decisions. "They used our language," he said quietly, but his voice carried. "They know our protocols. They requested parley, not surrender, not submission." He looked around at the representatives. We've maintained peace for 3,000 cycles by choosing communication over conflict. I won't abandon that now. The military advisor's tentacles writhed. Chancellor, that ship could destroy this entire station with a single broadside. Yes, Vorn agreed, which is why it's significant they asked to talk instead. He straightened, pulling himself to his full height. Open a channel, grant them permission to send representatives, standard diplomatic protocols, minimal security detail. Rilth's manipulators shook as he transmitted the authorization. They waited, watching that massive vessel hang in space like a sleeping predator. After 2 minutes that felt like 2 hours, a small craft detached from the warship's belly. 6 smaller escorts flanked it, each one bristling with weapons yet holding formation with parade ground precision. They're coming, Fenn breathed. Chancellor Vorn nodded slowly. Yes, and we're about to learn whether the galaxy just changed forever or ended entirely. He watched the approaching shuttle, trying to ignore how his survival instincts screamed at him to run. Prepare the diplomatic bay, whatever species built that ship. We need to understand them before we fear them. The shuttle grew larger on the screens. Somewhere inside it sat representatives of a species powerful enough to build mobile fortresses, yet disciplined enough to ask permission before entering. Vorn hoped desperately that such beings could be reasoned with. Because if they couldn't, the Council's 3,000 cycles of peace were about to end in fire. The diplomatic bay had never felt so small. Security teams positioned themselves at every entrance while scanning equipment hummed constantly, analyzing everything about the approaching visitors. Chancellor Vorn stood at the center platform, refusing to show the trembling in his legs despite 3,000 cycles of experience failing to prepare him for this moment. The shuttle touched down with barely a whisper of sound, engineering that sophisticated spoke volumes about the species that built it. The escort craft held position outside, weapons visible but unpowered. A calculated show of capability without aggression. Vorn appreciated the nuance even as it terrified him. The hatch opened. The being that emerged stood upright on 2 legs, bilateral symmetry like a dozen other species, yet something about the way it moved suggested coiled readiness. Bipedal mammalian with binocular vision and opposable digits. Physically unremarkable compared to the massive warship that carried them here. I am Captain Rodriguez of the Terran vessel Prometheus. The being spoke Galactic. Common with an accent that suggested long study rather than natural fluency. I request audience with the Galactic Council on matters of mutual survival. Terran, the word meant nothing in Council databases. Vorn's translator AI worked frantically to parse etymology and came back with rough approximations related to dirt or ground. Earth people, perhaps. The captain wore a uniform of dark blue with minimal ornamentation, practical rather than ceremonial. Welcome, Captain Rodriguez. Vorn managed to keep his voice steady. I am High Chancellor Vorn. On behalf of the Council, I grant your request. He gestured toward the Council chamber. Though I confess confusion, your vessel appeared on our sensors only hours ago, yet you speak our language and know our protocols. The human's face shifted and what databases suggested was a smile. We've been watching for some time, Chancellor. Observing, learning, your council has maintained impressive peace. We wanted to understand you before making contact. Outrage rippled through the assembled representatives. The military advisor surged forward, tentacles snapping. You violated our space, spied on us. We remained in unclaimed regions, Rodriguez replied calmly. Studied your public broadcasts, learned your languages and customs, much as you would study any new species before initiating contact. The human tilted its head slightly. Or do you make first contact without research? The advisor had no response to that. Vorn felt a flicker of respect for this captain. Deflecting accusations with simple logic took skill. How long? Vorn asked quietly. 200 cycles by your calendar. Rodriguez met his gaze directly. We needed to be certain. Certain of what? That you were worth saving. Silence crashed through the chamber like a physical force. Junior analyst Fen found her voice first. Saving from what? Rodriguez's expression shifted to something databases labeled as sadness. You detected an anomaly 3 months ago, large mass approaching from the galactic rim. Your science teams dismissed it as sensor error or natural phenomenon. The human pulled a small device from their uniform. Permission to display data. Vorn nodded. The holographic projection that materialized made several representatives recoil. Organic vessels that looked grown rather than built. Ships that moved like living things. Weapon signatures that made no sense according to known physics. We call them devourers. Rodriguez's voice remained level despite the horrific images. They consume everything. Planets, stars, civilizations. We've tracked them for 30 of your cycles. They destroyed 3 species before we encountered them. The human paused. They destroyed 3 more before we learned how to fight them. Why should we believe you? The military advisor's voice shook. You appear with a warship and terrifying stories. This could be invasion tactics. It could be, Rodriguez agreed. But it isn't. The human gestured to the projection. Your outer monitoring stations detected scout elements 6 days ago. You attributed it to equipment malfunction. Check again. Run deep spectrum analysis. You'll find biological signatures where there should be none. Rilth was already working his console. His clicking intensified as results appeared. Chancellor, there are organic compounds in the readings, configurations that suggest coordinated movement. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're real. Vorn felt his body sag slightly. How long until they arrive in force? 5 days. Rodriguez deactivated the display. Maybe 6. They're slower than us, but there are thousands of them. And you came to warn us. Skepticism laced the advisor's words. Out of altruism. The human's face shifted again, something harder entering their expression. We came because we remember what it was like to face them alone. Rodriguez looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of species. 30 cycles ago, they found Earth, our homeworld. We had just achieved faster-than-light travel, thought ourselves ready for the galaxy. The captain's voice grew quiet. They nearly exterminated us. Billions died before we understood what we faced. We survived by adapting, by learning their weaknesses, by becoming harder than we ever imagined. Rodriguez straightened. We won't let another species endure that, not when we can help. What do you want in return? Vorn had lived too long to believe in free salvation. Nothing. The simple word carried absolute conviction. We want nothing except the knowledge that we stopped them, that another species didn't have to learn survival the way we did. Fen stepped forward. Your ship, how many like it do you have? Rodriguez's smile returned, grim but genuine. Prometheus isn't alone. 22 more Titan-class battleships wait just. Outside your space, we came to ask permission to offer help. The human looked directly at Vorn. But we need to move fast. Time is a luxury we don't have. Vorn made the easiest and hardest decision of his 3,000-cycle life. Then let's not waste it. Preparations consumed 4 days in a blur of frantic activity. 23 Titan-class battleships materialized at the coordinates Rodriguez had specified, each one as massive and scarred as Prometheus. They brought 300 support vessels, a fleet that dwarfed anything the Council possessed yet moved with precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. Fen found herself assigned as primary liaison to the human fleet, a position that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She stood now in Prometheus's command center, trying not to stare at everything. Where Council ships favored open spaces and artistic design, human vessels prioritized function. Every surface served a purpose. Every corridor could seal and become a defensive bulkhead. This wasn't a ship. This was a weapon that happened to carry people. Your defensive platforms are positioned wrong. A human technician named Wilson pointed at the tactical display. Devourers will exploit those gaps in coverage. The Council military commander bridled at the criticism. Those platforms have protected us for 500 cycles. Against conventional threats, Wilson agreed. But devourers don't fight conventionally. They'll send suicide craft through your weak points, disrupt your formation, then hit you from 3 angles simultaneously. The human pulled up simulation data. We've seen this pattern 17 times. Fen watched the commander's tentacles coil tight, pride warred with pragmatism on his face. Finally, pragmatism won. Show me the correct positioning. Relief flickered through Fen. At least some council forces were willing to learn. Not all had been so cooperative. Nearly a third of their fleet refused human coordination, insisting on maintaining independent command. Captain Rodriguez had accepted their choice without argument, simply reorganizing the battle plan around those who trusted human experience. Contact in 90 minutes. The announcement came from a human officer whose name tag read Chen. Her voice carried no tension, no fear, just professional assessment of incoming threat. Fen's fur stood on end. Doesn't your crew feel afraid? Chen glanced at her with what might have been surprise. Of course we do. Fear keeps you alert, keeps you alive. She returned to her console. But we've done this before. Fear doesn't help with the doing, just the preparing. How many times? Fen asked quietly. How many times have you faced them? Personally, 43 engagements. Chen's fingers moved across her controls with practiced ease. Some lasted minutes, some lasted days. You learn to stay calm or you don't survive to learn anything. The casual mention of 43 battles made Fen's head spin. Most council species went entire lifetimes without seeing combat. This human spoke of it like discussing weather patterns. Rodriguez entered the command center. Status. All human vessels ready, Chen reported. Council-coordinated fleet reports 97% preparedness, independent forces holding separate position as agreed. The captain nodded. Devourer composition. Initial scout reports indicate 4,000-plus vessels, larger than predicted. Chen pulled up enhanced scans. They're bringing everything they have. 4,000. The number should have paralyzed everyone in the room. Instead, human crew members simply adjusted their calculations and continued working. Fen realized with startling clarity that these people had faced worse odds and survived. Their confidence wasn't arrogance. It was experience. They want to break us here. Rodriguez studied the tactical display. Make an example, discourage future resistance. The captain's expression hardened. We're going to disappoint them. 60 minutes to contact, another officer called out. Fen watched as the human crew settled into their stations. Some checked weapon systems, others reviewed damage control procedures. A few exchanged quiet words, touches on shoulders, small gestures of connection. They prepared for battle the way others might prepare for a difficult day's work. Serious but not panicked, focused but not rigid. You should head to the observation deck, Rodriguez said gently. It's shielded, you'll be safe there. I want to stay, Fen surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. I need to see this to understand. The captain studied her for a moment, then nodded. Strap into that station. Keep the channel open to your council command. They'll want real-time updates on our tactics. The next hour crawled past. Sensors tracked the approaching swarm, organic vessels that moved like a school of predatory fish, coordinated yet chaotic, deadly yet somehow beautiful in their alien wrongness. Council defensive platforms powered up. Ships moved to assigned positions. Human titans formed the center of their formation, massive and immovable as mountains. 30 minutes. Weapons-free status confirmed. All titans report ready. The calls came steady and calm. Fen recorded everything, sending data back to council commanders who watched from their flagship. She could see their fear in the response messages, could feel it herself. But the humans around her showed only focus. 10 minutes, Chen announced. Devourer forward elements accelerating. Rodriguez opened a fleet-wide channel. All vessels, this is Prometheus Actual. Remember your training, trust your crews. We've fought these things before and we'll fight them again. The captain paused. Council ships, welcome to the family. You're under our protection now. We won't let you down. Fen felt something shift in her chest. Not reassurance exactly, but something close. These humans had crossed the galaxy to protect species they'd never met, had risked everything because they remembered their own near extinction. She'd read about compassion in academic texts, but watching it in action was entirely different. 5 minutes, Chen's voice remained steady. Devourer fleet entering extreme weapons range. Rodriguez settled into the command chair. All Titans, prepare to demonstrate why Earth builds survivors. The captain's eyes reflected the tactical displays. Let's show them what happens when prey evolves teeth. Contact in 60 seconds. Fen gripped her station, watched 4,000 nightmares close in, and trusted that these scarred ships and their calm crews knew what they were doing. The Devourers entered range. Prometheus opened fire. The universe became fire and physics. Prometheus's main batteries spoke first, magnetic accelerators launching projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Kinetic rounds designed not just to pierce, but to shatter. Each impact released energy equivalent to tactical nuclear weapons. Devourer vessels, organic and adaptive as they were, couldn't evolve fast enough against simple mass moving impossibly fast. Fen watched her displays fragment into dozens of smaller engagements. The independent council forces engaged first, eager to prove themselves. She saw them die in the first 90 seconds. Devourer weapons dissolved shields like they weren't there. Biological acids ate through hulls, organic projectiles that burrowed and consumed. The independent fleet's formation collapsed under assault they had no doctrine to counter. Prometheus, this is Admiral Kern. The desperate call came from the surviving independent commander. Requesting immediate coordination. We don't. Transmitting tactical integration now. Rodriguez's voice carried no judgment. Follow the nav markers. We'll cover your withdrawal into formation. The captain switched channels. Titan 7, Titan 12, create corridor. Get our new friends to safety. Two massive battleships adjusted position. Their combined firepower carved a path through devourer swarms. The surviving independent vessels limped toward safety. Fen counted 12 ships from an original force of 97. Pride had killed 85 crews. But the coordinated council forces told a different story. Ships under human direction moved like dance partners, never where devourers expected, always supporting each other. When devourer weapons found one vessel, 3 others covered it while it pulled back for repairs. Human tactical doctrine emphasized survival over glory, pragmatism over heroics. They're adapting, Chen called out, adjusting attack vectors to counter our kill zones. Acknowledged. Rodriguez remained focused on the tactical plot. Execute Protocol Anvil. Fen had studied that protocol during the preparation days. Human tactical philosophy operated on the principle that any intelligent enemy would adapt. So every plan included multiple layers. When the Devourers learned to counter Tactic 1, humans were already implementing Tactic 2. The Titan formation shifted. What had been a defensive wall became a hammer. 23 massive battleships accelerated forward simultaneously. Raw momentum weaponized. Devourers tried to scatter, but human support vessels had been positioning for this. Smaller, faster ships herded the organic swarm into the Titan's path. Brace for impact, someone called out. Prometheus hit the Devourer formation like a meteor striking atmosphere. Point defense systems created a sphere of destruction around the Titan. Anything that got close enough simply ceased to exist. The battleship's armored prow smashed through organic vessels. Sheer mass making a mockery of evasive maneuvers. Hull integrity 93%, a damage control officer reported. Forward armor ablating as expected, well within acceptable parameters. Acceptable? Fen looked at the readings showing entire sections of armor being burned away. Watching humans consider such damage acceptable gave her new understanding of how they'd survived the Devourer's initial assault on Earth. The battle developed into brutal mathematics. Humans had calculated exactly how many Devourer vessels they needed to destroy to break the swarm's cohesion. Not total annihilation, just enough to make continued assault suicidal. Every shot was aimed, every maneuver deliberate, nothing wasted on the spectacular when the efficient would serve. Titan 19 reports critical damage. Chen's voice stayed level. Engineering spaces compromised, requesting withdrawal. Granted, Rodriguez opened a channel. Titan 19 fall back to secondary position. Titan 4 cover their withdrawal. The captain never hesitated, never questioned. Crew safety mattered more than pride. Fenn's console lit with data from Council vessels. Their crews were learning. Watching humans fight taught them more than 1,000 training simulations could. They saw how to survive, how to protect each other, how to treat war as problem-solving rather than glory-seeking. Devourer command vessel identified. Chen highlighted a massive organic structure at the swarm's center. It's coordinating their adaptation. Rodriguez studied it for perhaps 3 seconds. Titan actual to all vessels. Concentrate fire. Target designation Omega-1. Pour everything into it. 22 operational Titans and 300 support vessels oriented on a single target. The Devourer command ship tried to evade. Its smaller vessels threw themselves into the line of fire. Organic armor rapidly evolved heat resistance, developed reflective surfaces, grew ablative layers. It didn't matter. The sheer volume of fire overwhelmed any possible adaptation. Kinetic rounds, energy beams, missile swarms, exotic weapons humans had developed through 3 decades of fighting this enemy. The Devourer command vessel held together for almost 40 seconds. Then it came apart. The swarm's coordination faltered immediately. Individual vessels began independent action. Some continued attacking, others tried to flee. The unified threat fragmented into chaos. Press the advantage, Rodriguez ordered, but maintain formation, don't pursue beyond our support envelope. The next 2 hours proved why discipline mattered. Humans could have chased down fleeing devourers, could have inflicted greater casualties. Instead, they held position, protected council vessels, ensured every survivor made it back to defensive lines. Victory was never the goal, survival was. When the last Devourer vessel jumped to faster-than-light travel, silence filled the command center. Not celebration, just quiet. The kind that comes after surviving something terrible. Damage report, Rodriguez requested. 3 Titans heavily damaged but repairable. Chen compiled the data. 47 support vessels lost. Council coordinated forces report 18% casualties. She paused. Independent forces, 87% casualties. The numbers spoke clearly. Pride killed. Cooperation saved lives. Fenn looked around the command center. Saw exhausted humans already beginning repair and recovery operations. No victory celebrations, no boasting, just people doing what needed doing. Captain, she spoke quietly, your fleet, you saved us. Rodriguez met her eyes. We saved each other. Your crews learned fast, fought well. The captain gestured to the tactical display showing combined fleet positions. That's the real victory, not breaking the Devourers, but building something stronger than fear. Outside, rescue teams from both species worked together, sharing medical technology, saving lives without asking which flag they served. The alliance wasn't forged in battle. It was forged in what came after. 3 months after the battle, Fenn stood in the council chamber again. The room looked the same, but everything felt different. Representatives who once debated theoretical threats now understood survival in practical terms. Species that had never worked together were sharing technology, building joint defensive networks, learning from each other. Chancellor Vorn called the session to order. We gather to formalize what Blood has already written, the Human Council Alliance. Fenn watched Captain Rodriguez stand. The human looked tired but content. 3 months of constant coordination had aged the captain visibly. Yet something in Rodriguez's eyes suggested satisfaction rather than weariness. The terms are simple, Rodriguez addressed the assembled. Species, mutual defense against existential threats, technology sharing within agreed parameters, cultural exchange programs, joint training operations. The captain paused. And most importantly, no species stands alone, ever. What does humanity ask in return? Admiral Kern had survived the battle, learned humility through loss. His question carried genuine curiosity rather than suspicion. Friendship, Rodriguez said simply. We spent 30 cycles fighting for survival, building weapons instead of art, fortresses instead of cities. We became very good at war. The human's expression softened. Now we'd like to remember how to be good at peace. The honesty struck Fenn deeply. These powerful humans with their devastating warships wanted nothing more than companionship. Species who survived by becoming hard desired those who remained soft. Warriors seeking teachers of gentleness. Vorn stepped forward. Then let this alliance be founded not on fear of common enemies, but on hope for common futures. The Chancellor's voice carried across the chamber. We offer humanity what they protected, knowledge, culture, diversity of thought and being. He paused. And we accept what they offer, protection, yes, but more importantly, proof that strength and compassion need not be separate. The vote passed unanimously. Every species, every representative, even those who had initially opposed human involvement. They'd all seen what humans did when given choice between safety and sacrifice. Watch them shield council vessels with their own hulls, risk Titan-class battleships to save frigate-sized craft, treat alien crews as worth protecting as their own. After the formal proceedings, Fenn found Rodriguez in one of the observation galleries. The captain stood watching repair crews work on Titan 19. The massive battleship hung in dry dock, half its armor plating removed, internal structure exposed like bones. Will she fly again? Fenn asked. In 4 months, Rodriguez confirmed. Maybe 5, we build them tough, the captain smiled slightly. Have to, Earth doesn't produce anything fragile. Fenn had learned more about Earth in 3 months than databases contained. Humans shared freely, stories of a world that tried to kill them daily, weather systems that spawned devastating storms, tectonic activity that reshaped continents, diseases that evolved as fast as cures, predators that hunted persistence. Hunters and yet humans persisted, adapted, thrived. I read your planet's history, Fenn said quietly. The wars you fought among yourselves, the weapons you created, the destruction. She looked at Rodriguez. How did you move past it? How did you become this? Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. We nearly didn't. We stood at the edge of self-annihilation more than once. The captain gestured toward the stars. Then the Devourers came. Suddenly our conflicts seemed small, petty. The human's voice grew soft. Nothing unites quite like external threat. We stopped fighting each other because we needed everyone to fight them. And now, Fenn pressed, the Devourers are broken, scattered. What keeps you united? The memory, Rodriguez said simply. We remember how close we came to extinction, how many we lost learning to survive. The captain met her eyes. We remember that we were alone, that no one came to help, that we had to save ourselves. The human smiled sadly. We can't change our past, but we can change someone else's future. Fenn understood then, truly understood. Humans didn't protect the Council from obligation or seeking advantage. They protected because they knew intimately what it meant to face extinction alone. Their compassion came from pain, their strength from suffering. They'd been forged in fire and chose to use that hardness to shelter rather than conquer. The other Titans are deploying, Rodriguez continued, establishing patrol routes along the galactic rim, making sure no Devourer remnants return. The captain's expression hardened slightly. And hunting down those that fled, they won't threaten anyone again. And Prometheus, Fenn asked. Stays here for now, Rodriguez glanced at her. Someone needs to coordinate training programs, help Council forces integrate human tactical doctrine. Besides, the captain smiled genuinely. We've been fighting for 30 cycles, time we learned what peace looks like. They stood in comfortable silence, watching crews from a dozen species work together, sharing techniques, learning each other's strengths, building something neither could create alone. Captain, Fenn said eventually, At the battle, you said we saved each other, but you saved us. Rodriguez shook her head. You gave us purpose beyond survival. You reminded us why we fought so hard to live, not just to exist, but to connect, to build, to mean something beyond. Our own continuation. The human placed a hand on the viewport. You saved us from becoming nothing but weapons, helped us remember we're people first. Fen felt tears form. Her species cried when moved by profound emotion. She let them fall. Thank you, she whispered, for coming, for fighting, for staying. Thank you for letting us, Rodriguez replied, for trusting us despite our capacity for violence, for seeing past the warships to the people inside them. Below them, a mixed crew successfully completed a complex repair. Humans and council species cheering together, celebrating shared achievement. The alliance wasn't just military, it was cultural, personal, real. Somewhere in deep space, 22 Titan-class battleships hunted nightmares, ensuring the galaxy remained safe. Here, one remained, teaching peace to those who knew only its absence. And in the council chamber, representatives drafted treaties that began with mutual defense but grew to encompass art exchanges, scientific collaboration, cultural festivals. The day the council fell silent before humanity's power had passed. Now they spoke together, building futures their past selves couldn't imagine. And in the vastness of space, scattered and broken, the devourers learned that prey could evolve, could adapt, could bite back, and would never stop protecting their own.